Yeah, I've messed with Pro Tools and stuff. Some like I took a few semesters in college in audio engineering, which was helpful. But it really helped me learn that I don't actually want to record other people's music. Which is what I thought I wanted to do at first, and then I had to do it for school, and I was like, "This sucks." And so it helped me do my own. But like, I used a bunch of different, DAWs and whatnot, and GarageBand is kind of just the one that I stuck with.
Yeah.
Like it's very
It's
user-friendly,
user-friendly,
and
yeah.
it does everything I need. I'm not like making trap house music or anything.
Exactly.
So.
It works and it shows in your music too that you've had some teaching where they're just like too many variables in recording other people's music.
Yeah, well, I'm very, I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to the production side of things. Like that's actually we'll get into that too, but that's my favorite part of it. Like I really like the songwriting and performing and everything, but where I can spend just hours and hours and hours is in production, because you can fine tune effects, you can fine tune panning, it's all kinds of things. And so because I'd already been doing that myself for like 10 years or something like that, I just used to having full control. And then when you record other people, like it's their music, obviously they're going to want say in it too. And my mindset is just like, no, fuck you. I'm the one recording it. Like I'm going to make it sound the way I want to sound. And I realized like, you know what? I think that's probably going to be a problem, because the people who would potentially pay me are going to be like, well, we want it to sound how we want. And when you're starting out, like when you're like Jay-Z or, whatever, you can be like, you're coming to me because you want my sound.
Yeah.
When you're some guy, you don't have that kind of clout. And then that's how you lose clientele.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just didn't really enjoy the process of recording other people. And I don't think they enjoyed me recording them. So.
Producing would be tough, man. I mean,
it is. I have to imagine. You could have the little experience that I have.
You could have wound up being that dick that just look, I'm going to give you the version that you want, and then I'm going to give you the version as I would have done it.
Right.
Just see which one pops off better.
Yeah, that probably would have been a good way to go as a middle ground. But when I was, 22, 23 or whatever, I was just like, well,
it's double the work too. So I completely understand.
You and I always disagreed. Who was right and what we really need. And you were kind, but I was a machine.
Welcome back to Rated Radio. Can't tell we are joined by musician friend today. This is Kyle Aaron Ryan.
Yeah. Howdy.
Which I was surprised by the name, because I was just used to Kyle Ryan for most of your professional career.
Yeah, so that name was taken on.
I kind of figured.
On the internet. There's a more established musician with the same name. And I was like, well, I guess I'm using the middle name in the middle.
Hey, it works, man. So I'm going to jump right into this questionnaire just to move us along. Which artists have most influenced your music?
So, there's a lot. I have a pretty, eclectic catalog, if you will. And, I mostly stay in the realm of, like, indie folk or piano rock, stuff like that. But every now and then, I venture out, and there's a lot of my songs where, like, if you give me the name of a song, I can tell you a direct influence of another song or another artist. And so it kind of varies from track to track, what influences stand out. But, I would say like my first big influence was probably Ben Folds, and Ben Folds 5, because like that dude can get down on a piano. I think when most people think of piano heavy music, they're thinking a lot of like Adele and, just ballad type shit. And Ben Folds 5 showed that like, no, we can fucking rock on a piano, like that guy's ability is remarkable. And I've always sort of like when I was in middle school, I'd be like, one day I'm going to be that good. And then as I got older, I was like, no one's going to be that good. Like, it's not just me. No one's that good other than Ben Folds. So, but his level of showmanship and showing that, piano can be heavy and you can do heavy stuff with it and you can bang your head to piano based music. That was one. And then Radiohead was another big one. I didn't listen to a lot of quote unquote secular music until I was in high school. and Radiohead was one of the first regular, like, that wasn't a Christian ska punk band that I heard. And I was like, oh, this is like what other music sounds like. And they're doing a lot of cool shit. Okay. And then Get Up Kids were a huge, honestly, Get Up Kids are probably the most influential. Even though none of my music really sounds like them, in the back of my head, I'm like, I wish I made music that sounded like them, because it's just, like, it's super emo-y, but it's so good. And yeah, they've just always stuck around. Like, I think that was the first album that I ever bought was Get Up Kids, Something to Write Home About. And then I used to listen to a lot of Sigur Rós. There's actually there are a couple of songs that I did that if you listen to them, you're like, oh yeah, obviously. Because there's one called Half a Starin', which that's just a completely made up word. Like, all of the words in that song are just made up.
Right.
Because I don't speak Icelandic. But it was a weird song, you know, and I think your average listener was probably like, I don't want to listen to that coming out of this guy. So it was kind of a one-off, but I wanted to try something like that, and like, I like it. I think it sounds good. But yeah, I mean, the list goes on and on. There are a lot of times where I'll listen to a particular song and be like, I want to write a song that sounds like that enough to where people go, oh, this sounds like so-and-so, without them being like, you're fucking ripping off so-and-so.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I actually had a question. One of the songs of yours that I really, really enjoyed was The Elephant.
Yeah.
And I was curious to see any particular artist that inspired that, because I had one in my mind.
So... I
just want to see if I'm right.
Easy to impress, hard to make upset, but these people who never think about anything but themselves.
I don't know if there's a particular musical influence on that one. I have a friend of mine, Jake Dill, who anytime I get a band together, I recruit him to play bass for me. He refuses to play that song. Like, I've been in a few bands with him, and I've tried to get that song like in the rotation, and he refuses to play it because he says that the bass line is the Pixies' "Where Is My Mind," and he's like,
Okay.
I can't do it. You're ripping off "Where's My Mind." I'm like, I didn't even think about that song when I wrote this. It's not even like it has a similar vibe to it, and I can hear that, but it's not the same bass line. But to him, he's like, that's just "Where Is My Mind," and I'm not going to play that. Which sucks, because it's one of my favorite older songs of mine.
I love that song too.
That's actually one that's like the next one that I'm hoping to redo. It's giving me a little bit of trouble with how I want to lay it out. But yeah, I don't know if there's a particular influence on that one. I think I just kind of fuddled around and found that bass line, and when that sounds really good, I like that, and then I went with it. But yeah, according to my friend Jake, it's "Where Is My Mind" is the direct influence to him. What did you think?
Well, it's funny that you actually said Radiohead. This is why I gave that big reaction, and Shane looked at me like I was crazy, is because some of the songs on that Consolation album remind me a lot of what I love from Radiohead, which I know I talked a lot of crap about Radiohead, but the stuff that I did love about them, I feel I've sensed the influence there.
That album is probably, so I put that album out in like 2007, maybe a little before that. It's one of the things that I don't like about Spotify is that
you don't see the original release year.
I uploaded all those albums at the same time because that's when I created my Spotify, but it doesn't let you say, hey, what year? So everyone just thinks this guy put out 3 albums of varying quality in the same year.
I just figured you were really bored during COVID.
Yeah. Oh no, I absolutely was. I actually designed all new album covers when I got my Spotify and everything going, because I was like, I don't have album covers. Like the ones that I did have, I just pulled out of my ass. I didn't really like them that much, you know, and they were like 10 years old or something. So I actually spent a lot of time making the album covers, which honestly, I'm almost more proud of those album covers than I am of the albums themselves.
Well, they're good album covers.
The album cover for Three. It makes it, that album cover looks like it's going to be a real heavy album. And then it's not. Like, there's like one heavy song on it. And then everything else is pretty mellow. But that album cover, you're like, oh, it's fucking bloody streets and whatnot. This album's going to get down. And then you're like, oh, he's like crying. Okay.
Hey, even soft boys bleed, man.
Yeah, you know. But Constellations is probably my most Radioheady influence. I'm like, yeah, it probably shines through there. And I'm with you. I'm going to have like a love-hate relationship with Radiohead where like everything up to, what's the album that had like Wolf at the Door and...
I'm out of my depth.
I can't remember. It's the one that came out in like 2005.
Moonshaped Pool?
No.
That was later, right?
Yeah, that was later. Well, either way, whichever album they came out with in 2005, that was the last one that I enjoyed. Everything else after that, I was like, okay. Like, Tom started getting really heavy into, we're going to use computers to generate a lot of sounds. And it was like,
Yeah, I think my opinion after the OK Computer album, I was just like...
It's starting to sound like glorified elevator music to me. And like... From a computer user standpoint, like, yeah, getting that automation down to generate the sounds that you want consistently, that's cool. That's a skill. But I don't give a shit about it, though.
Yeah. Well, your influence is definitely track, and not to spoil anything upcoming or whatnot, but I definitely think even Get Up Kids tracks more in the realm of when you start a band.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Who shouldn't listen to your music?
So I thought about that question. Actually, I was like, I don't know if there's anyone in particular. And then the obvious answer came to me, and it is probably any of my ex-girlfriends. Because I realized, so my output has slowed down in recent years because my life really stabilized. Yeah. And most of my songs are based on like emotional hardship and shitty ex-girlfriends and stuff like that. Like, so the song The Elephant is about an ex-girlfriend who
I ain't
was
gonna forget.
out of her mind. She spray painted, like when we broke up, we were living together in an apartment, and she got all mad at me. And so we split up, but I was like, well, I'm still going to live here. Like, I'm still on the lease.
Yeah.
Right. You know? So I'm going to keep living here. So luckily it was a 2-bedroom, so we just were in different sides of the bed. But she started dating a new guy who she was like 5 years older than me. I was 18. She was 23, which in hindsight, that should be a red flag.
Don't recommend.
But at 18, I was like, I'm going to move out of my parents' house. I'm going to live with this hot girl. And, that sounds great. And then she turned out to be like out of her mind. And so like we broke up, and she started bringing this other boyfriend over who like tried to be my friend, and I'd be like, no, dude, like, wow. I have nothing against you, but I'm also not going to be your friend. Yeah. And then she just got mad at me one day and spray painted a big old dick and balls in the living room. And I was like, you also live here. Like, now you have a dick and balls in your living room. And then I moved out.
Maybe that was the goal. Maybe that's what she wanted to see every morning when she ate her cereal.
Hey, you want to ask, like, do you think these people have, gotten better over time? Or are they better people now? But
I don't know.
They still have the dick and balls on the wall.
So I've actually tried to look her up on Facebook because she was a certain brand of crazy. Like, it was the kind you could see it in the eyes. Okay. And I ignored it because I was like, meh, I'm 18, who cares?
Yeah.
But she has stayed off the internet. I've tried a few times because I'm like, I wonder if you're still crazy and stuff. I have to imagine you don't just stop being crazy, But The Elephant was very much about her and how, like, I'm not going to forget any of the shit you said or did because you were out of your mind.
That seems like the biggest red flag. I have no internet presence whatsoever.
I have a very little internet presence, but
there's something
at a personal
there.
level, I'm glad because, like, I don't need everyone knowing, especially in today's age. Like sometimes I go on, I get on my Facebook memories to go see, like, oh, what did I say 15 years ago? And there's a more than I would like to admit amount of things where I'm like, I'm going to delete that forever because that was unflattering to say.
I think we all have posts and stuff like that in the past that we wish we could just erase from existence.
And I'm glad that I have the power where I can go and see the old dumb shit that I've said and be like, I'm going to get rid of you. Instead of other people being like, hey, we found this old dumb shit you said. And then me having to be like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say no ex-girlfriends should listen to any of my music because it doesn't paint any of them in a good light. Other than the ones that broke up with me and then I was like, oh, I'm so sad. But they don't want to listen to that either.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and that doesn't make me sound good. So if any of you are listening, don't listen.
Turn it off now. We've lost listeners. What do you often wish you had help with when it comes to making music?
More equipment. The downside of making music, and I think, I mean, a lot of hobbies, obviously, you need a lot of gear, you know? And luckily, you know, now there's a lot of sample libraries and things that you can utilize with, you know, MIDI keyboards and whatnot, where you don't have to have all of these analog instruments lying around, yada, yada. You don't have to have 1,000 effects pedals to achieve all the effects that you want. Although, I mean, that's certainly something that is desirable, you know?
Yeah.
I have a family friend who he's retired now, and so he just has all the income and time in the world to spend on his musical equipment. And you go to their house and you go into a studio and it's just synthesizers and pianos and all kinds of speakers and shit everywhere, which I could probably achieve the same thing on my laptop. But there's something about just being in a room of equipment and being like, oh yeah, like
Kid in a candy store.
Hell
It's
yeah, dude, like,
inspirational.
exactly.
Yeah.
But then there's also like you have to know how to use all the shit.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've always struggled with too is that I very much my writing process. Most of the time, I don't even finish the song before I start recording. I write like the meat and bones of the song, and then I'll start recording that and laying it down, and I'll add more instrumentation, and then I'll write more parts as I'm recording because I get to hear how it is going to be shaped more in the final. Because it's really hard for me to be like, oh, this is the guitar part and I'm doing the vocals. This isn't going to be how it sounds when I'm done.
Okay.
And it's hard for me to be able. I have to be able to visualize, you know, certain parts of the song before I can continue the writing process. And but a lot of that also would be really helpful to be able to jam it out, you know. But because I'm only one person, I just kind of have to like record a part and then go and record something over it. And like, if I just had like a couple more Kyle Ryans in the room, be like, all right, guys, let's play some shit, and then we'll work it out from there.
Until none of you agree.
That would be great.
That
Right,
would be the
until-
problem.
Yeah, I've wondered, like, would we all agree, like, that's the sound, or would we all disagree, and be like, fuck you, because our egos are all going to be the same size, and I was going to be like, I want it to sound the way I want it to sound. So I don't know. And a lot of the band, not a lot of the bands, but one of the bands I've been with, they called me a prima donna because I do things the way that I like to do them, and I'm the kind of person that once I learn my part, I know my part. I don't have to rehearse it. I have it memorized. And so they liked to have band practice at like 11 in the morning, which I guess is fine if you're 80 years old or something. Yeah. But we were in like our early 20s. I'm like, I'm not even awake at 11 a.m. all the time. And you want me to practice 3 times a week? Like, y'all can practice, and I'll come to the practices when I get there. And they didn't like that because, you know, when you're in a band, you're supposed to rehearse. Like, and I get it. But my excuse was always, I know my parts. Like, I can show up to the gig right now and play my part perfectly. It's fine. But that is definitely a prima donna attitude.
Exactly.
For sure.
And the thing is,
I think if you had multiples of those in a recording process, you know, it wouldn't work out. But man, if I just had some extra hands to play parts the way that I want them to play, it would really help me jam some stuff out and work some things out, you know?
And if you think about the people who make magic in the realm of music, most of them you could probably call prima donnas to one degree or another. That's kind of one of the best compliments you can have as a musician.
Yeah, I wasn't insulted by it at all. Honestly, I was like, yeah, you're probably right. But like, I mean, like, dude, like Michael Jackson, Prince, those guys are definitely prima donnas.
Yes.
You know, I'm sure that people that worked with them were like, this guy is a bitch. But the results are undeniable.
Yeah.
You know,
That's why they weren't in bands.
The music sounded the way they wanted it to sound because they knew how they wanted it to sound.
They also call them geniuses.
Yeah, so. Right. I don't know if I'd go that far with me, but you know, yeah, I wish I had more shit equipment wise and just like one clone, you know, just one clone.
I get that.
It's so easy.
So what's the untold story behind one of your songs?
That one, there's not really a good answer to because I feel like all of my songs are. I like to try and keep things vague enough that, you know, you can apply it to your own situations. I think that's one of the best things in songwriting is you don't want things to be too specific where people are like, well, I can't relate because I never dated Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
You want to have, you know, kind of vague lyrics going on so that people can then like paste that over their own story, and when they listen to it, it hits them, right? But so I feel like I've done a good job with that, but I think they're specific enough that you kind of understand what I'm talking about. And so there's not really any untold stories there, except for I do have one album. It was kind of like a side project concept album called Ultra Brains, and it's an 8-bit, very heavy 8-bit sort of. I'm trying to, because it's not pure 8-bit. Like when people who listen to chiptunes and whatnot will be like, yeah, it's very heavily influenced.
Yes.
But just an electronic album, and there's no lyrics to it whatsoever. But every single one of those songs actually had, like, in my brain, I've never written it out, but in my brain, there is an actual plot and storyline to that album. And so
it felt like a video game journey to me, just so we're
like each track it's a particular stage of the story, but like there's no words or anything to it, and unless I've told you what the story is, you're just like, oh yeah, these are just songs that don't have any words to them. Cool, you know.
I mean this as the biggest compliment because I like this band a lot, but that 8-bit album kind of reminded me of when Tron did Tron Legacy, and they did the whole, like, there were no words in that, it was all electronic, but you could tell that it was a concept album to go with the story.
Yeah.
But taking that and mixing it with the 8-bit elements of it and sort of sandwiching it all together, like, I kind of got that vibe from that album.
Yeah, it was. I've always really liked that kind of music. There's this artist named Disaster Piece, who, like, I've always heard, like, you know, you hear growing up playing Nintendo and whatnot, I heard that type of music. And, you know, I think that nostalgia is kind of what got me interested in trying to listen to that. And then I discovered this guy, Disaster Piece, and he went to the music school of Berkeley. And so, like, he's from a technical level, very good. And then he also just has a great ear for what sounds good.
Yeah.
And like his tracks are so complex and well crafted. Like and especially wearing headphones. I recommend wearing headphones when you listen to any music, but especially stuff like that because there's so many layers going on. And I remember just listening to it and being like, what the fuck? Like, there's so much going on, but none of it is. Everything still stands out in its own part, you know? Because one thing that happens with a lot of chiptune artists is there's so much layering, but you're like, I can't tell what the hell's happening now because you've done too much. And he did a really good job of balancing out, like, yes, there's a lot going on, but you can still hear all of it. And so, like, when I heard that, I was like, I gotta make something like this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I put out Ultra Brains, and yeah, largely because of that dude, his album called Level, and each song is a different level, and I was like, I like that idea. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to do something similar, but none of that is stated, you know, blatantly on the track. But yeah, I really like that album. But again, there's a story to it, but no one's ever heard it. And if you're interested later, I can tell you what the story is. But yeah, that one is actually probably one of my favorite albums. One day I would like to play it live, but I'd have to figure out how.
If we're going to draw listeners to this particular album that we're discussing right now, I would make a comparison in my head. When I hear your 8-bit work, what it reminds me of is John Boswell, who does like Symphony of Science, some of the auto-tune the news type stuff. Very, very well crafted. And he also has their theme albums, but they have absolutely no lyrics whatsoever. So you are getting these very evocative titles that they're already painting a picture, but when you start to hear the music, it goes perfectly well with. And I think you hit the nail on the head in that regard. So
I agree.
I appreciate that.
Props to you.
Yeah, that was one, you know, like I said earlier, I have a lot of songs that are just one-offs where I'm like, I'm not going to consistently do that style of music, but I wanted to put one out at least just to see if I could. But with that album, it was like I enjoyed making that kind of music so much that I was like, well, let's do like a few tracks of it because I have other ideas. And I mean, I've had people tell me like, "Hey, we like your regular stuff, but like that album, man, it's if you're into that style of music at all, it's a good album. I'm super proud of it.
Yeah, it slaps, as the kids would say."
Oh, Dad.
Hey, there's two of us in the room.
I know.
Honestly, it's one of the ones where when I put it on, I think the same thing. The song "Evasive Maneuver" is probably the standout track on that album. And every now and then I'll put it on. I'm like, dude, this song it fucking slaps. Like, I would go back and high five myself if I could, Good job, dude.
If I played that for my son, I would never be able to turn the fucking album off. I could tell you that. What's your favorite part about creating music?
So like I said earlier, the production side of it, the songwriting part has slowed down quite a bit since having a wife and a kid, and like my life is stabilized and everything, and like all my music was based on I'm sad and things aren't going well. I'm gonna write about that, and now I'm like I'm pretty happy and things are going pretty good. No one wants to hear about that shit.
Yeah.
Good for you, though, man.
Yeah, like I'm glad. But,
does put a damper on the
put
creative
a damper
process.
I know.
Process where I'm like, why can't my wife just cheat on me or something,
Why
Give
can't
me
I be a
something,
sad?
shit.
Why can't I be a sad bastard?
Yeah, like,
Damn
fuck,
it.
man.
Rachel, that was not a pass, right?
But even so like when I was younger, I was pumping out songs like on a weekly basis, but they weren't all good. And my recording, like, that's the other frustrating thing about Spotify, not letting me put what year the album came out. When you listen to my older albums, you go, yeah, the songs are good. The recordings leave something to be desired. And as I got better at the production side, of course, the recordings got better. And like these latest few tracks that I've done, the recordings are near perfect. I'm a really big perfectionist as I've gotten older. And at this point, it's probably to a negative because I'll finish recording a song and then I'll just sit there and fuck with it and try and fine tune it. And sometimes you do too much, and I go, oh man, I liked the way that it was earlier, but now I've changed it so much that I don't remember like the settings that I had and I fucked it up and like now it doesn't sound as good. I'm gonna have to re-record it, but it's not like there was that one part though that I don't know if I can redo and blah, blah, blah. But like, it's just because that's the part that I love because there's so much, because with all the sample libraries and everything, you can just spend forever messing with it. And you're like, you know what? That's a cool part. And I like that it sounds that way with like strings. But what if instead of strings, it was horns? Or what if instead of horns, it was some crazy gobbledygook synthesizer that no one's ever heard before?
Yeah.
Or what if it was like a bunch of dudes screaming? Like, I don't know. Let's fucking see. And, you just get to play around with it. And a lot of times I'll write songs because I was fucking around with effects. Like, I had no intention of I was working on something else, but I was like, oh, that effect sounds cool. Not for this song. Let's start doing something else with that effect and see what we can come up with. And then sometimes I'll record a song. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Oh, right, I was working on this other thing still. I'm like, yeah, it's just like, it's a little playground for me, And so I really, I enjoy the recording process. I'm pretty efficient at that. The songwriting process is fun and all, but the real fun shit for me is the post-production and just getting things to sound exactly the way that I want them to sound. Because I've gotten a lot better at that part. Growing up, it was like I knew how I wanted things to sound, but I just didn't have the technical ability to make them sound that way. And now, equipment-wise and skill-wise, I have the ability to make things sound the way exactly that I want. So, yeah.
Which is great. Yeah. Which is great. And I'm really looking forward to what's coming. So, who would you most like to make music with?
Dude. So, I wouldn't say that their music is an influence on any of my music, but I admire the hell out of Jack Black and Kyle Gass. And in terms of just pure enjoyment and excitement of playing with them, I feel like Tenacious D would be the best because, they're good. They're very good musicians, but they don't put off, I would love to play with Ben Folds, but Ben Folds has such an aura about him that I would shit my pants in his presence and be like, oh, I can't perform in front of you because anything I do would sound like dog shit in comparison to what you're doing. Where Tenacious D, their stuff is so well composed and has such a good sound, but on a technical level, their chord progressions, it's not anything crazy, but they just have such a stage presence and such an energy about them that, all their shit rocks,
Yeah.
Even their songs that suck are still good songs in and of themselves, even if it's not their best song. But, dude, I just feel like playing with those guys, they wouldn't make you feel shitty about whether or not you're as good as them. and it would just be a good ass time,
Yeah.
you know. And you probably also get super duper high. So even if you did suck, you wouldn't remember. So you know.
Sounds like a great time.
But yeah, dude, Jack Black, man, that guy's his energy levels and his vocal style is just like he commands a room, you know, but not in a I'm better than you he's just so. He has a magnetism.
Yes.
You know?
Just got that powerful
Yeah.
presence.
And I think that's
He does
probably,
not need a microphone.
That's
man.
why people
His
gravitate
voice is
toward him.
fucking
Yeah.
powerful.
Yes. And it's probably a good place for you at this point in your life too, because like you said, you're stable, you're happy. So making the fun music, having a good time for the sake of having a good time is most likely what you need.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, dude, and like anytime, like I every time I listen to music in the car, I'm singing along to it because why the fuck not? But usually I'll sing, you know, just pretty casually. When I'm putting Tenacious D on, dude, I'm turning it up all the way,
yeah.
and I'm fucking belting it. Like I'm trying to mimic Jack Black's fluctuations and everything to a T because, like, dude, like the way that he sings is so animated,
Yeah.
and like he changes, like you can hear he's like, oh, I'm closing his throat to make this
Yeah.
sound, and so on. And like it's such a production in and of itself, and it's so fun to listen to, but it's also really fun to sing. Like I on a long drive home, I've listened to and sung along to the Pick of Destiny soundtrack the whole way through, and got home and I was like, that was like the best drive of my life. I fucking love it,
Dude,
dude.
I find myself all the time going, long ass fucking time ago
Yeah,
in
man.
a town called Kickapoo. Like every time. Such a good soundtrack.
You don't always understand. I will always take your hand.
Well, now that you made me sad.
Well, that's kind of my shtick. So.
No, I'm kidding, man. I'm kidding. So where were we at? Were you ever part of another musical act? I think you've kind of answered this, but I want some detail.
I've been in a few bands. Like when I first started out, you know, I was just playing by myself, but not really getting a whole lot of traction there. Just because, I mean, frankly, I wasn't trying that hard to book shows and stuff. So I did like open mic nights and whatnot. But then, like over time, you make friends and whatnot. So like the first band I was in was with my best friend Ruben, and then another friend of ours, Jada. And eventually, Jake Dill is my bassist friend. Anytime I have a band and I need a bassist, I'm like, Jake Dill. And anytime I need a drummer, I hit up my buddy Trent Reeves. And so he was a part of that first band, but honestly, at the time, he was a better drummer than we were a band. And so that was kind of short-lived. There's still some mildly embarrassing performances on YouTube of that band.
Are we talking about the Checkers or
Yeah, dude.
Swamps of Sadness?
So Swamps of Sadness was the second thing I did with Jada, and I really liked that one a lot because I got to play drums in that band. Like I'm mostly known for playing piano, but I've actually always wanted to be a drummer like my entire life. That was the first instrument that I was like, that's what I want to fucking do. But then my parents were like, well, we don't have drum money, and also those are loud, so no.
Nice.
And then when I got into middle school, I wanted to be in drumline, but the band director there, Mr. Lewis, the dick, was
I
like,
straight quit band because he told me I had to play something else. I'm guessing.
oh yeah, so you know
Something
Mr.
similar.
Lewis. Yeah. So he was like, you didn't get straight A's in elementary school, so you can't be on drumline. I was like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? No one told me that shit. What the hell, man? When are these guys going to be in drumline? They didn't get, this guy's fucking dumb as shit. I know he didn't get straight A's.
It's like the only time in your life when your parents were actually right that it makes a fuck what you're doing in school.
I would have
In
actually
elementary.
tried.
Well, so that was honestly, that was probably my beginning of my fuck the administration attitude that I developed in continuing years, where it was like, I didn't do anything wrong and you're telling me no because you're just a fucking butthole. And so I didn't get to play drums then. I've never gotten to have a drum kit. The drum kit that I played in Swamps of Sadness was just like a garbage can and a fucking like, it was a piece of shit. But I was like, whatever, drums, I'll play them.
Get to play 'em.
And then finally now I've got this Roland TD-17 and like, dude, I'm like a tiny little boy. Just every time I get to play it, I'm so fucking happy. And also because you can just make it sound however you want. But yeah, so in Psalms of Sadness, I was super jazzed to get to play drums and I was singing at the same time. And this was also when I was still like skinny and hot and shit. So anytime I see any of those videos, I'm like, yeah, look at that guy.
I wanted to make jokes when you were going to be coming on the way because I recently posted as a joke for her AI photos she's been posting. I posted an AI photo of myself as my profile picture. I look nothing like that at this point. I wanted to write you like, hey, by the way, I look the way I looked in elementary school. I'm not who I was at 21, just so we're clear. I want to hammer on here for a little bit of just because I feel it's your history and I kind of want to talk about it a little bit. Didn't you do a live performance of Weezer's Blue Album at one point?
Yeah, so that was another band. So like after Psalms of Sadness, I didn't really do anything for a little bit. And then when I was I was like 22, 23, something like that, my buddy Ruben joined the Air Force. And it was kind of like a shell shock for him because like me and him we're still super tight. But like we became best friends pretty much instantly. I had dated his cousin, and she actually introduced us. I played a show at Texas Jive, and I'm aging myself with that statement alone. But he came to see me play, and he was like, yeah, dude, we should jam out sometime. I was like, yeah, cool. And so I went over to his shitty little duplex apartment on Margie Street, and we drank an entire handle of Captain Morgan's Parrot Bay coconut rum. Oh, man. And we just jammed out in his 5-foot tall living room. And it was just like, it was one of the, like, from the first time we hung out, it was like, did we just become best friends? Yep.
Nice.
And so then, like, after that, like, just every day, I just, like, hey, I'm going over to your house. And he was like, okay, I'm at work. I'm like, do you care? And he's like, no, that's fine. Just, yeah, I'll be home in a couple hours. Like, cool. And, like, we just hung out all the fucking time. And his entire family thought we were gay, which, honestly, maybe they weren't wrong. But, like, so, like, we were super tight, just hung out every day for like 5 years, and then he graduated college and was like, what am I supposed to do? Oh, I'll join the Air Force, fuck it. And so he did, and it was kind of like, oh man, that was I don't know what I'm supposed to do now, like my friend is gone. And so I kind of went to like a depressive slump for a while, and then to help me get out of it, I was like, I should probably join another band, right? Like that'll give me something to do. And I did. It was called the Shelby Vinyl with Trent Reeves and Taylor Mosley. So we did that for like a year, and that's probably the most performative band. Like I did an ass load of shows. Like we did a couple shows a week. There was one time we did 3 shows in a 24-hour period, which in hindsight was probably a mistake.
Damn.
Yeah, we were tired. And we did that. And so then eventually that broke up, and me, Trent, and Jake did a band of my songs. But the drummer that we got for that, because Trent moved to guitar, and the drummer we got for that, he had to move to North Carolina or somewhere for school. So that dissolved, and that's when we brought in another friend of mine, Bill, and we did a Weezer cover band. That was a very long road to get to the answer to your question.
That's okay. But, this is why I'm asking the question.
We did a Weezer cover band, and we did most of the Blue album. We have only ever played like 4 or 5 shows for whatever reason. But honestly, yeah, that was one of my favorite things to do because I was the rhythm guitarist on that, and also rhythm vocals. So my job in that band was super easy. I just got to get up on stage, like playing these power chords, and then song's done. I get to take a drink of beer while people clap and cheer, as if I had anything to do with this music whatsoever. Like, I did nothing. I'm just playing power chords that someone else wrote, but I will take the applause, you know. But yeah, it was fun, dude. Weezer's fun to play.
Yeah, I will agree. Their style is fun as well. It clicks.
Yeah, I mean, and again, not super complicated, you know. Like there are some songs where you're like, oh, well, that's an interesting thing you're doing there. But the Blue album, especially, was very straightforward chord progressions and whatnot. So
I've tried explaining this to people too, and you brought up Tenacious D earlier, which is another good example. There's something about even as someone who really loves complex music and stuff that clearly took way more skill than I will ever have to produce, right? But there's something about artists that you can tell are way more talented than they should be, but they're still not pretentious about it at all. They're still making this fun music. And I think that's pretty cool.
One thing I really appreciate musicians that can put out captivating music that isn't necessarily complex. I think a lot of times people think that complexity equals quality.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. Like whenever I hear dudes who are like shredding for 5 minutes, where I'm like, on a technical level, that's very impressive. It's not fun to listen to. I don't want to listen to that for 5 minutes. Like, just play something that sounds good, you know? And, I mean, like, fucking Rod Stewart said he only knew, like, 4 guitar chords. Still one of the most popular artists of his time, you know? Like, you don't have to be technically amazing. If you just have a good sound and you have an idea of what is engaging, you can just play fucking 4 power chords in a row. I mean, U2, with or without you. That's literally 4 chords over and over and over again. And they're fucking U2, you know? Like this. Everyone knows who U2 is.
Kids are still finding it these days.
Yeah, dude.
I think it was the day it came out. There's something like thrash can't be fun to play either. Like, you know what I mean? It's just too much, too fast. It's got to wear you out in 5 seconds.
I hurt my hip yesterday, actually, because I was playing drums and I was doing a lot of really quick kick drum stuff. And it was a lot of fun to do, but then I stood up and was like, ooh, ow, my hip. And then like all day yesterday I was limping at work. And I was like, this is pathetic. This is just sad. And so while it's like, I like thrash metal and stuff like that sometimes, but apparently it destroys your body, as I found out by doing it for 5 minutes.
I'm saying some music just wasn't meant to be played, right? Not to make this personal, but do you ever get to see Ruben now that he and Val are back?
Yeah. I mean, he lives in New Mexico. New Mexico? Arizona? One of those sandy ones. And so, but like, I get to see him, 2 or 3 times a year. They come visit for Christmas and stuff. So, like, he's gotten to meet my son a few times and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, it's not as much as I would like, but
that's adulting.
It's what I get. Yeah, it's adulting right there.
If I didn't have the podcast, do you know how much I would actually see him?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Bullshit. She'd be over here every week trying to socialize.
It's only because we're family.
What song do you most enjoy covering?
So, I don't like doing straight covers of things. Like, if you're just going to do an exact replica of the original, then why wouldn't I just listen to the original?
What's the point?
What's the fucking point? Yeah. And so whenever I do covers, I like to try and do them in a slightly different way. But I also like to do covers that seem unconventional for me because it's just funnier that way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so one that I actually really like to do is Baby One More Time by Britney Spears.
Okay.
Because frankly, that song fucking hits, man. It's a well-written song from a vocal range. Like, you gotta kind of get up there a little bit, but it's not so high that I'm like straining to do it.
Right.
But it's just got a good fucking rhythm, man, and it's a fun song to play. There's another. So I didn't do the composition of it, but there's this Australian band called Gordy. And they were on Triple J's Like a Version, and they did a cover of Linkin Park's In the End. And it was right after Chester died. And so it was a very poignant cover for the time that that they did it. But I really liked it a lot, and so I'll play that on guitar. I've never performed it, but I like to play that at home. And yeah, man, that's a really good cover. But then I would say the one that I've probably played the most is True Love Waits by Radiohead. Because that of all of their songs, like motion picture soundtrack is probably the one that hits me the hardest. And then it's True Love Waits.
Okay.
And it's original acoustic version, not the version they put out on this last album. I don't care what you say. That version sounds like crap, and I hate it. I was so excited. I was like, oh man, they put it on this album. I listened to it and I was like, what the fuck is this? What have you done to this song? But there's a live recording of it when they're in like Glasgow or something like that. And it's just, dude, he gets it right on that version. But yeah, it's a good cover staple. Whenever I do play live, I try and play that one because it just sounds good.
Okay. I think something you might be subconsciously overlooking is the notion of maybe introducing people to music they might not have heard before. Like, take for me, I'm an idiot when it comes to certain artists. Like, I had never heard all that much Radiohead growing up. So the first time I heard like Spinning Plates was your version.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
that's awesome, dude.
When we actually got to listening to Radiohead, I thought it was the superior version by far. And I don't know if that's just an initial hearing bias, but I suspect I liked the clear simplicity of what you were doing. It worked, in my opinion. Have you ever considered doing a cover album or getting permission to release that officially?
I've thought about it. I mean, that version is on my Spotify, which I'm probably should look into. But that's actually I just talked shit about people who do straight versions of existing songs. But that's actually just a straight cover of a live performance of that song.
Yeah.
Where he did on piano. But I felt the same way. I was like, that's the version that you should play.
Should have existed.
Like, this over computerized, over produced bullshit is, well, it's fine, I guess. It's cool that you can do that. But that version was, that sounded a lot more engaging to me. And so that's why I wanted to learn, to play it. And then I wanted to record it myself. And I actually recorded that song outside, in the backyard of the house I was living in on Normal Street, because I had to do several takes. And I was like, they're going to get super annoyed listening to me because I was listening with like 7 other people. And, yeah, man, I really like that version. I really like that version of the song a lot. My wife gets tired of hearing me say it because anytime it comes up, I'm like, the strings in that song actually aren't strings at all. There's actually horns that I played backwards. And then I edited the effects so that it sounds that way. And she's like, yeah, I get it. I'm like, congratulations.
How very Copeland-esque of you.
This is a cool way to do it. Okay. I couldn't reproduce it now. Honestly, I have no idea how the fuck I did it.
Nice.
Because it was like, that was like 15 years ago or something. But, yeah.
Well, not to piss you off, but that song is awesome. If we're going to get people listening to your music, it's also on my website. It's part of a mashup video that I did. I can't think of the name right now, so I apologize. You'll have to look through 408 videos to find the motherfucker, but it is there. If you were going to change your sound, what genre would you like to take on?
So, I've thought about dedicating more time to doing the 8-bit heavy kind of stuff because I have I have probably like a dozen ideas in that genre. I use an app called Figure by Propellerhead, and it's really good for sort of getting ideas going. It's essentially like a looping app, but it has a lot of really nice sounding instrumentation on it. And it helps me sort of put ideas together. But I primarily use it for like 8-bit type stuff because that's a lot of the sounds that it has.
Right.
But I just haven't dedicated the time to it. So maybe that. I'm also a big, I listen to a pretty decent amount of various genres of metal. I like a lot of melodic death metal and, more harmonious type stuff. I like thrash metal stuff every now and then, but I like the kind of metal that it sounds like you would ride into battle on a horse.
Like symphonic, we're talking like Rhapsody or...
Not Rhapsody, but so there's this one band called Destroy, 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 which I hate that name, but they're a damn good band, and their songs just, when I listen to them, I'm like, I could just chop off a bunch of dudes' heads while listening to this. It's great. And it's just, it's very, very orchestrated and epic sounding metal. But I do not have the vocal, I can't do the growl at all. I sound like someone strangling a raccoon when I try. It's awful. And also, I just don't think my persona fits. I know that metalheads are, anyone can be a metalhead, but me as a person, I think if I got up there and started playing metal and shit, people who know me were like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
It's hilarious
Even
to
if it sounded good, they're like,
some of the bands that are popping off. Yeah, you look at them, they look like the 21-year-old hipsters. It's
Yeah.
wild to see.
I mean, yeah, I think now, you probably have a little bit more room to be unconventional in whatever genre you're in, but yeah, I just don't think I would get taken seriously doing it. But man, if I could though, yeah, I would do some metal. It's fun to listen to, fun to play.
There's a group that's popping off at the moment. Actually, I think it's Polyphia.
Oh, Polyphia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Polyphia.
dude. Yeah, they're fucking good, man.
I don't know how to pronounce anything. I apologize.
They're very complex. They're a little more metal based. There's this other band that is kind of similar, although they're a little bit more math rocky, but not like annoyingly math rocky. Called Covet.
Okay.
And man, they're a 3-piece. It's this little Japanese lady on the guitar, and then bassist and drummer. But they're one of those bands where like they're constantly changing time signatures, so like it's impossible to bop your head to.
Right.
Well now you're on a different beat. Okay, shit. But they're really good. They're really good. But yeah, they're in that kind of. They're a little bit lighter than Polyphia. Polyphia is really trying to fuck you in the ears.
Yeah.
Which is fun sometimes,
Yeah.
I mean,
you're into whatever you're into.
Who doesn't like to be fucked
fucked in the ears. Yeah.
when the mood is right,
Well, I guess if we ever do the verses, we'll try to pit those two against each other.
Yeah.
We'll do it soon, maybe, because Rayburn ear fucking. No,
I'm
okay.
looking to get fucked in the ears, man.
What's missing from your online discography or song library?
There's a whole bunch. I mean, so a point of pride is that I've recorded, I think probably like 150 songs or something like that. But if you go to my Spotify, you'll notice that there's probably only like 30 or 40 on them, because they're not all good.
Okay.
A lot of them are really bad. And, it's a learning process, right? So I just like recorded, and like now I'm good. But a lot of them at this point are just for my own personal nostalgia. And I would never let anyone hear them.
Not
ever.
even trying to rework them or anything like that.
No.
We're going to leave that alone.
Like there are probably a good 50 songs that my wife has never heard just because I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, and not that they were necessarily bad, but like I'm like I've been recording music since I was 15. So I've been doing it for like 21 years, which sounds cool and also terrible to say at the same time.
Yeah, time just keeps going, man.
At 15, my voice was like, I've got feelings, and it's like it doesn't sound good, objectively speaking, And so while like the content was maybe fine, the performance is just unbearable.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just those ones are just gonna die off in the ether.
So are there
somewhere.
Let him die, sort of thing.
I've always wondered, are there other tracks out there that people bug you about the way I bug you about Tiny Hands or have over the years?
Yeah, so Tiny Hands, dude. Tiny Hands seems to be the one that people are like, you fucking redo Tiny Hands like all the time. Anytime me redoing stuff gets brought up, Tiny Hands is one of them. Which I'm probably going to do it because it's a good song.
With a root and soul, and tiny hands.
There is one song though that is actually lost in the void forever, and it's on my brother's old fucking Mac. It just never got transferred over to another computer. It's called Symptoms, and it's a really pretty piano song, but his Mac died, and that's the only place it exists. And so no one's ever going to hear that song. I think my friend Jada, she knows that song, but she doesn't have a copy of it. And yeah, so no one's ever going to hear that song, and I'm never going to be able to reproduce it. So
it really sucks too. I know that feeling.
And it's a good one too. It's not one of the ones where I'm like, oh, this song sucks, so whatever. It was like, oh, actually, that's actually a good one. Shit.
When I was younger, I wrote like poetry and all my story ideas and everything down on paper. I played piano by ear. I had no idea. And I had been messing around with a lot of Beethoven, just trying to pick up everything. And I had like this 4-minute tune that I would play, and it was fucking complex as hell. And I moved out of my grandmother's house for a while, and whoop, right out of my head.
Yeah.
It sucks, man.
There's, I'll tell you what, that Beethoven guy, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
There have been a few times where I used to do my fair share of drugs, and I would hang out. So like when I was living with my folks, the garage was kind of that's where I got to go and jam out in the middle of the night. It'd be like 2 a.m, whatever. And I'd go out there and like I'd drink some beers, smoke some weed, whatever. And I had this shitty stand-up piano out there that honestly, I don't even remember where I got it from. And I think it might actually still be out there. But I liked that it was shitty because I didn't have to worry about taking care of it. I could just go out there and bang stuff out, you know? And so there would be times like I would record stuff on my phone, but I was all fucked up. And I would listen to it the next day and be like, that actually sounded really good. Man, I wish I could remember what the fuck I did. But it was just like, you know, a voice memo on the phone. And then it would get deleted because the phone would break or whatever. But there have been several things where I really liked the way it sounded at the time and even later listening to it, and then it just disappeared. Selfish Machine, actually, I had to remember how to play it before I re-recorded. Okay. Not because it's not even particularly difficult. It was like I didn't remember what key it was in at first. And so like a few weeks ago, I'm in my office and I'm like, does it start here? Nope, it's not. Hang on. Maybe there's a couple keys down. And my wife was like, yeah, you're struggling. I was like, I'm going to figure it out. You leave me alone, all right? And then I did figure it out. It only took me a minute. And then it sounded really good. So, you know, I have to, I have enough songs recorded and written that like my brain I have some stuff's got to go, you know, to make room for other stuff. And then if I ever want to play it again, I'm like, I gotta think about it. Let's see. And if I don't play it exactly the way it used to be played, then I'm the one that wrote it. So I'm like, this is how it's played now. So yeah.
Are you having fun?
Yeah, I am again. I mean, it was a bit of a bummer, you know, like obviously I love being a dad and I love my son, but like, boy, it sure takes away a lot of the time that I had. And again, my life not being terrible kind of makes being creative a little more difficult. But since getting this drum kit again, it has certainly renewed my enjoyment of playing music, just to play music. Like, even if I'm not writing or recording things, it's just fun to play, you know? And because it's something that I haven't gotten to play my whole life, getting to just jam to other band songs and getting to play along to it is just a good time. But it is sort of amping up the creative juices because when I'm playing someone else's songs and then I do like a good beat, I'm like, oh, I could utilize that. And then it you know, gives me the opportunity to sit down and start writing something of my own. It's just a matter of the time, you know. Yeah. Time is not as abundant as it used to be when I was 20 and unemployed living at my parents' house. So.
Imitation, you know, trying to play other people's work, imitation will definitely create influence, in my opinion. But you clearly do need the time. What about right now, here and now? Are you having a good time?
Oh, yeah, dude. I'm having a great time, man.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
How's the lawnmower? You're drinking the fancy lawnmower from St. Arnold. Yeah, the fancy lawnmower.
You know, I don't remember if there was a time that it was ever just called lawnmower.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of the, what's it called, where you remember something one way, but then you turn, like, the Berenstein Bears thing?
Yep.
What is that called?
Mandela effect.
Yeah, Mandela effect. I think it's the Mandela effect there, because I think I remember a time that it was just called lawnmower.
It was just lawnmower, yeah.
And now it's fancy lawnmower, but then I go, maybe I'm wrong. I have no idea.
I think when we covered it on the beer show, I was talking about this is the fancy. I didn't even see the normal lawnmower.
Yeah.
Because maybe we just weren't paying attention in younger years.
I mean, they probably rebranded it. This is one of their most popular, if not their most popular beers. I like this one because it's a good middle of the road. I wanted to bring something, but I don't know what kind of beer you like. So after working at a liquor store for a few years, my preferences and my tolerances are drastically different than they were. You know, and so now like I'm cruising on like 9.5 ABV beers pretty much every time. Anything less than 7% is like a waste of my time.
Okay.
But
I'm going to hide my Michelob Ultra.
I don't know. Well, no, that's fine. So I'm a snob when it comes to liquor. When it comes to beer, every beer has a time and place. So whatever. But I didn't want to like bring over like 10% alcohol beers and then you're like, oh, I'm fucked up. So I brought over like a good middle of the road. I think this is like a 5%, something like that. And even for like people who don't drink beer and they're like, oh, I don't know if they like beer or not. This is a great one to introduce them into it.
Yeah, I'd agree.
This and Dallas Blonde from Deep Ellum.
You're in a safe place if you ever want to bring the stronger beers.
Oh, okay, good. I know you got that Utopia and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, we could get real crazy. Last episode of Banter Bar that came out, we literally had, what was it? Was it 10 whiskeys
Yeah. Nice.
here that we blew through, and it took an hour and a half episode.
Yeah, it was long. The reason I asked the beer question, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, is because I grabbed this Atomic Pumpkin thinking it's just going to be a pumpkin beer. I'm pretty sure this fucking thing has like chili peppers in it.
Yeah.
It's hot.
They'll get you, man. Yeah.
It's spicy.
Yeah, I was telling you earlier, the whiskeys that I was like, oh, I have to drink them because they've been open and they've just been in my pantry for like 2 years. The quality's gonna go down. It was a lot of like Weller 12. I had a bottle of Eagle Rare. I had freaking Antique 107. I had a 12-year-old bottle of Yamazaki.
That's just not fair.
They're all really good. That's the benefit of working at a liquor store, man. And it made me kind of sad though, because those were like all like the last remnants of my time at the liquor store. Yeah. I loved that job, dude. It was so fun. I just got to go hang out with cool dudes all day, and then people will come in and be like, "Hey, talk to me about booze." Okay, great. And then at the end of the day, my boss will be like, "Hey, we got all this booze. Do you want to take it home?" Yeah,
yes, please.
Sure. For a while, for like a year, I came up with this idea. I was like, hey, we try and increase some foot traffic. I'll make instructional videos on how to make certain cocktails using these like brands of alcohol that we're trying to get off the shelf, right? And then people will watch them and they'll be like, oh, I'll go buy that. And in exchange, I just get to keep whatever bottles I use in the videos. And my manager's like, that's fine. I don't give a shit. Great.
Nice.
So for a while, my cabinet was stocked to the brim. But then, that ended. But I had all these like high-end bottles that I got like super crazy discounts on. And that was kind of like my cherished memories of that super awesome time in my life. And then I had to drink them. So the only one I have left now is I have a bottle of Blood Oath Pact 4 up in my closet. And that one I'm holding on to because it's just super good.
That's for when you find out you have cancer you're not going to live through. And
yeah, here we go. Might as well, No, so that one I actually saved for so you have to be related to me either by blood, I've loosened it up now, or by marriage. But it has to be like an important life event. Like, oh, you had a kid. Oh, you got married. Oh, you got divorced. Oh, your kid got hit by a car. Like something important that is going to impact, the family. Drink some Blood Oath. Okay. But it's been a while, so now it's just hanging out up there. Everyone's already gotten married and had their kids and stuff. So we'll see.
I'll stick to my 17-bottle Big Horn apple whiskey. I'll stick to that in my Tullamore Dew.
Dude, Tullamore Dew's all right. Yeah, when it comes to liquor, I'm a bit of a snob now.
It's okay. I'm used to them.
But beer, though, I'll drink the best beers, yeah, but I'll drink some shitty beer, dude.
This tracks, actually, because I have some expensive taste with regard to liquor.
Yeah.
If I'm going to drink it, like the Yamazaki still haunts my dreams. It's not.
Have you ever had Yamazaki?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, it's so fucking good.
My you talked earlier about the immediate best friends thing. Mm-hmm. My wife's younger brother, who now lives in Japan and has 2 kids, and we see him once a decade. Same sort of experience. We clicked when I was doing that comedy project back in the day, the Crude Mama's Boys stuff. He was one of the people that I would write all that dirty, disgusting music with. But he went through a phase where he wanted to purchase high-end liquors. He was real into mead for a while, and then it was scotch, and, we went through a lot of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Yamazaki is really what I remember catching.
Yamazaki is a really good one for scotch drinkers who are trying to branch out a little bit because, it's made in Japan. Japan it's an island, and there's just salt in the earth, all over the place. And so it's got a pretty good amount of peatiness in it. But that also turns some people off. People who like whiskey, but they don't like scotch.
Like I gave a sample of it to my boss before I finished it off. And I gave him a few samples, and that was the one that he didn't like. He was like, I didn't like it. Had like a weird, like a stony taste. And I was like, yeah, it's the peat.
Yeah.
You know, and he just wasn't a fan of it. But yeah, dude, Yamazaki was fantastic. I'm trying to think. There was E.H. Taylor. E.H. Taylor Small Batch is one that is, like, if you're trying to get into higher end stuff, it's not going to break your bank too bad. I think you can get it for like $60.
Okay.
Depending on where you look.
It's not terrible.
Yeah, it's not terrible, and it's real good. But there's also, especially with whiskeys, there's a lot of really good bourbon out there that you can get for cheap, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like Four Roses, like $25 a bottle.
Yeah, it's nothing.
And it's super solid. Weller Special Reserve, again, $25 a bottle. It's a wheated bourbon, so it's a little sweeter, but super, super solid stuff. You don't have to be rich to get into it.
I feel you on the job thing.
You got to
by
be
the
rich
way.
to stay in it.
Yeah. People were on the YouTube show. I got, what is it? Whiskey Tribe, I think is the one that I've seen the most of.
Yeah. It's probably the most prolific one anyway.
Where the fuck do you guys get your money? Like, that's
right from doing that. I mean, once you get to a certain level, you can just be like, hey, give us stuff and we'll talk about it on our show because we have listeners, and companies will be like, fucking all right.
You got to get to that level though.
But you got to get to that level. Yeah, you can't just get drunk on YouTube.
That's what I do.
Well,
and I like that.
Well, if I need any advice, I know officially who I'm going to go to. So.
Yeah, oh, dude, I'm a library of it. Oh, by the way, so you were talking about how when you're making that crude music, blah, 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 it kind of reminded me, if there was another genre I could do, I don't think, if I wanted to have no friends ever again, there's this other persona that I have.
Oh, tell us about that.
His name is Scrody Williams.
Okay.
And he's like a real crass, like Tennessee type, like he's like a has-been, if you will. And I actually have recorded a few songs where like there's the actual versions of the songs, but then I was like, I'm gonna do a Scrody version because it's gonna be fucking funny. And he's just really crass. Like he's a very, he's misogynistic at heart. I try not to go too hard into that because like it's only funny to a certain level,
right?
You know. But honestly, if I could go on tour in character as that guy, like think like a ZZ Top looking motherfucker,
like a Wheeler Walker Jr. sort of thing,
sort of. But he just got like a real. Fucking singing and shit. And
you sound like Beetlejuice.
And but he as a character he's fun to do. My wife hates it.
Sure she does.
Anytime I start saying right, she's like, please stop doing that.
No Scrody tonight, honey.
He just thinks about balls and getting drunk. It's like anytime whenever I do a Scrody version of things, he does the lyrics properly for the most part. But then, like, every now and then, he'll just interchange the word balls for something else, Just because it's like, I don't know. I just imagine him as just being a has-been who's just drunk all the time. He's, like, 70 years old, Maybe he used to be in a prolific country band or something, but he's such an asshole that kicked him out or something. He's like, fuck you, I don't need you anyway. I'm going to go do my own thing, man.
Love it.
When the wife hates it, that's how you know you're on the right track.
That's how I know I'm good, yeah. When she's like, you're fucking stupid, I'm like, obviously this is genius then.
Damn. All right, so I've got some other things I can talk about with you. How has becoming a dad changed your relationship to music? I think you kind of already told us. It just kind of limited your time.
So, yeah, I mean, it's limited my time for sure. It's like he's old enough now. He's 3.5. And so it's to the point where I'm like, if you're not in the same room that I am, I know you're not necessarily dying.
Yeah.
So cool. Like I can let you hang out in your room and play with your toys, or like, oh, you're gonna go, watch fucking Mecha Builders or Wipeout or whatever, and I can go do some things. But I will say I'm a very attentive father.
Yeah.
And I want to, like, he's my only child, right now, but he might always be my only child. And so I understand that time is fleeting and I want to spend as much time with him, especially in these years, as I can. And so there's a part of me that even when I do have free time where I could go do something else, there's a certain guilt factor. I'm like, I should be spending this time. Like I'll have time to play music and stuff later. He's only going to be 3 for so long. Like we just got him his first big boy bed. I'm like, oh man, that was a struggle to tear down his crib. I'm like, yeah, no, you're a big boy. I'll tear this crib down. It's fine. Like, man, it's hard, you know? And so I don't want to, that's what I'm looking for. Like, I don't want to give up time that I can spend with him to do other things.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me feel like I'm not being the best dad I could be, you know?
Especially at this stage because it kind of tapers off.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, once he's like 12 or something, I'm like, you want to be playing video games and jacking off anyway. So, like, great. You go do that and I'll go do my thing. But, like, he's not doing that yet. So, you know, like, I should probably hang out with him as much as I can. But part of that, too, is I'm trying to include him in, like, I want him to be interested in music because while I can't necessarily have a real clone of myself, I can make this fucking guy learn how to play music and maybe he'll want to play with me and hopefully he's as good or better than I am. And I can be like, all right, buddy, lay down a beat. Let's go. And, like, we can play together.
You're developing the cheat code as we speak.
Yeah, dude, I sure hope so, man. He likes the drums. He's a big fan of the drums. I mean, he likes all, like, he just goes into my office. He's like, can I touch this? Can I touch this? I'm like, yeah, just be careful. But, yeah, I hope that it clicks for him and he wants to learn to play music. Because it'll be really fun and meaningful to play with him. But also, from a selfish point of view, it'll be really helpful to have someone play parts that I need to play, you know?
I was going to ask if you were the baby dad when he was first born, because I had that struggle, like everything was tears for like the first 6 months to a year of his life. Then you talked about tearing down the baby bed was emotional experience. I think I kind of already have my answer there.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm a big old softy. And I'm one of those people who I get nostalgic for things that are happening currently.
Yes.
Where like I'm in the moment and I'm like, I'm gonna miss this moment so much in the future. And then I have to be like, dude, chill out. Like it's fine. Yeah. Just enjoy it. It's okay. But yeah, like I'm a big old softy dad. But I try not to be a pushover, you know?
Yeah.
Because he's like, at this point, he's getting to the point where he's like, can I do everything I want
can take
all the
advantage.
time?
Yeah.
And I have to be like, no. No thanks, buddy. And it sucks sometimes, but, you know, I want him to know that I love him, but I also want him to be well-rounded and not a piece of shit. So, like, sometimes you gotta
lay
That's
down
every
the law.
parent's
lay down the
goal.
law, you know? Yeah.
Do you feel like he gave you back some of that emotionality you had before your life was stable? Like maybe you want to write more music or feel...
So honestly, I've wanted to write a song about him since before he was born.
Yeah.
Like when I found out my wife was pregnant, I wrote a song about him, but I hadn't met him yet. I didn't really know what it was like. And so then when he came out and I got to know him a little bit better and whatnot, I was like, that song doesn't really fit with how I actually feel now. Like that was a song I was like, I bet this is how I'm gonna feel. And it turned out kind of, but not really. But it's so hard to put into words the way that I feel about him that I've tried like 4 or 5 times to write songs about him, but it's so hard to get on paper. You know, It's as a dad, there's so many complex feelings just about being a dad. Yeah, it's hard to verbalize, you know. But yeah, like honestly, that's probably my biggest hurdle right now from a creative standpoint is like I gotta write a song about this kid, but like I want it to be a good enough song. I don't want to write a crappy song. Like it has to be a good song because eventually I want him to hear it and understand what it means and what I'm saying. And so, yeah, it needs to sound good, you know? So, yeah, I'm struggling with that part. But, like, yeah, it does. It certainly gives me a goal in terms of getting that song written.
Right.
But in other creative ways, like, it's about the same. But, yeah, it definitely makes me want to write a really good song.
Yeah.
For him. So like Ben Folds' song, where it's like, Good Morning,
Son. Yeah, it's Good Morning,
you know
Son.
The one I'm talking
about. I know it.
Dude, that song, so when he was born, he had to stay in the NICU for a few days.
Still fighting it, sorry.
Yeah, still fighting it, that's the one. So he had about like a half a second Brady episode, and protocol was we have to monitor him for like 3 days. And so like they had him in the NICU, and he's in his little, you know, crib thingy, and they have a camera right above it. And they gave us, like, go to this website and you can view his camera live feed whenever you want. Well, so we were allowed to stay at the hospital for 3 days, but he had to stay longer than that. So we had to go home. and leave him there. And like, that was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I remember, this was still when we were living with her parents. I had to go get groceries one day, and I just had my phone on with his live feed, and I'm watching him, and he's got the fucking tube in his nose, and that song came on shuffle, and I'm in the parking lot of Winco, just like tears pouring out of my face, because like all I want to do is bring my kid home and hold him and everything. And like, he was fine, you know, like there wasn't anything wrong with him. It was just protocol that they had to monitor him. But like, it was tough because he was born December 17th and he didn't get to come home until Christmas Eve. And I think a lot of the reason that they let him come home that day was because the hospital staff knew that if they didn't, my wife was going to kill all of them. So, but yeah, man, it was tough, but that song in particular, like that's the bar where I'm like, I need to write a song at that level because that song fucking nails it, you know?
Maybe that's why there aren't more songs about kids, because I feel like once you become a parent, like it's a thing you definitely want to write about. But it does. You hold yourself to that higher standard.
Yeah, man. Like there's lots of songs. Like I said, I've tried 4 or 5 times, and I write them like that's just not good enough. Yeah. Like it sounds all right, but it's not good enough. Like he deserves an amazing song.
Exactly.
Him, you know,
nothing like the throwaway songs you'd write back in the day in 5 minutes, which they sounded really good because your heart was broken,
right?
And they sound good to other people whose heart's broken. But it's like, it's not the same as like, I really miss putting my penis in you. Those songs, they don't really carry over as well.
And also for people who don't have children, no one wants to hear a song about, oh, my fucking kid, I love you so much. You're like, yeah, no shit, you love your kid.
Yes.
Fucking duh. And so if it's a song that sucks, you're like, next, you know, but if it's a really good song, they're going to be like, oh man, maybe I should get my girlfriend pregnant, you know?
Still Fighting It would be one of those.
Yeah,
I would think.
Still Fighting It is definitely one of those.
And I've been kind of quiet on a lot of these topics. I didn't want to go too soon into like my opinions of your music and my thoughts on you specifically, but like, and we'll get there. I just wanted to voice my agreement that Ben Folds is amazing. I actually,
he really is.
I remember early on, like when Brick was big, I was hearing people make these complaints about like the music's just so simple, anyone could do this, and like, I knew some people back then who would be they'd point to like philosophy. It's like, clearly not. This dude knows what he's doing. He can, and you think about the fact there's no guitarist here. It's bass and it's drums, and he's banging it out and making it work. I don't want to make the conversation about me, especially not in a session where my co-host isn't really getting to say anything.
Dude, no, you're fine. Go ahead.
But how did you end up here today? How do you and I know each other?
So we, I was actually having to explain this to my wife because she was like, who is this person? And so we went to the same elementary school, rode the same bus in Vacation Village, man. And I don't know if you remember this, but literally our only interactions, really, because we weren't in the same classes or anything.
Yeah, I think it's like
our only interactions were at the bus stop.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I think you're in my sister's grade, I think. And so our only interactions really were at the bus stop. But I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that golden retriever incident?
I'm gonna guess not. I got bit by like 3 dogs out there in my time in the trailer park.
That neighborhood was terrible for dogs. So
the golden retriever incident. Here we go.
It's not really funny, but I'm going to laugh because it's one of those things where it's so awful that if you don't laugh, you're just gonna cry. So there was this golden retriever that for like a couple of days would come to the bus stop, and we were all like penned in like, oh, what a nice dog, and yada, yada, yada. And then one day it's at the bus stop and we're all hanging out, we're petting it. And, you know, you could hear the bus coming down the street and you see it turn the corner, right? So this dog hears the bus before we can see it, and it tears down the road and it goes to that street, and the bus comes around the corner and the dog starts running next to the bus. And we're like, oh shit. And then the dog jumps in front of the bus, still going faster than the bus, and it's running. But as soon as it gets in front of the bus, we're all like, oh, shit. And the bus driver doesn't fucking slow down. Now, granted, maybe he didn't see the dog because the bus is high up. Who knows? Whatever.
They never slowed down.
They never slowed down, ever, though. Like, not even. And we're all like, fucking stop the bus! Stop the bus! There's a dog! And the bus driver, like, he can't hear us. He's like, oh, these fucking kids up ahead. Yeah, I'm the bus, guys. Whatever. You know? And then the dog tries to make it to the other side. Obviously, it does not. And I mean, we're all like in 4th and 5th grades. We got like some 2nd and 3rd graders, and just it's a crowd of 30 children going, "Oh my God!" Like watching the most horrible thing that you could see at that time in your life.
It's like
and
that.
then the bus pulls up, and we're all like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" Like, "You just ran over a dog." He's like, "I don't know what you're talking." "Oh shit, I did."
It's like that scene in Napoleon Dynamite where the school bus pulls up and that dude is putting down that cow and all the kids are going,
Yeah.
"Ah!" like right in front of him.
Well, and the shittiest part about it too was, so like after school, we get dropped off and we have to walk by that area, and all you see is just a big old stain and then a streak where someone had to drag the dog off the road. And it was just like, oh, that's gonna stick with me forever. And here we are. And it has. And
The
like,
golden retriever incident.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fucking rough. But
Rough.
yeah. But yeah, no, that's how we knew each other.
You know,
Was
that-
having to ride that shitty bus, and I do remember, was his name Rick, the bus driver?
oh my God.
He was a really nice guy. Like, he was retired for a while, and every now and then he would bring us donuts, and that was cool. I liked that guy. Maybe that was a different bus. I don't know. Yeah, that's how we knew each other.
Sounds
though.
like it might have been a different bus, but Rick sounds familiar. I remember
So-
getting in trouble just while we're on the
Yeah.
topic of the bus. There was a kid named Mitch who lived
Mitch.
out there. It was Atterbury.
Oh yeah, fucking
Yeah.
Mitch Atterbury, dude.
And this is the kid, I think, who licked his lips a lot and always had like the red stuff around his mouth. Anyway, I was toward the back of the bus. He was standing up front screaming one day just at the top of his lungs. And I screamed something like, "Sit down, Mitch." Never thought about it. This fucking bus driver shows up at my house on the weekend and starts trying to tell my grandmother that I screamed, "Sit down, bitch," or "Shut up, bitch," or something at him. My God, there's a kid named Mitch on the school bus who doesn't
On the
shut up.
weekend, bro.
Yes,
Also, don't show up to a student's house. You're a bus driver, man.
And it's a trailer park.
It's a
Do you
trailer
think
park.
my grandmother gave a shit if I was
Right.
saying bitch? Like, no. It was... Anyway, this is kind of a stupid throwaway question, but I wrote it, so I'm going to ask. In case there's any importance, I have now fucked that up. Does your German heritage influence your music at all?
No, because I'm not actually German. I was just born
You were
there.
born there.
I was born in Germany. I'm an army brat. So both my parents were in the army. My mom for far less than my dad, because my mom is legally blind. Like, she can still kind of see, but not enough to really like do things, right? And so obviously can't serve in the military with that.
Yeah.
So they just charged her, and then my dad stayed in for like 17 years, something like that. But yeah, so my family lived in Germany. Both my older brothers were born in military hospitals in Germany, and then we moved back to America, or they moved back to America because I didn't exist yet. And my sister was born in Kentucky, and then they moved back to Germany. And I was born in an actual German hospital, so I am the only one of my family who had German citizenship.
Oh, okay.
Until I was 26, and I was unaware at the time that you have to choose, well, do you want to be a German citizen or an American citizen? And I didn't know that. And so I didn't choose, I never got the form or whatever. And so now I'm stuck in this fucking country.
Maybe you could have been with your best friend this whole time.
Right, I know. I never would have. Well, no, yeah, I guess I would have. Yeah, I could have been like, hey, guess what? I live here now permanently. Lederhosen, bro.
Not that we're going to walk it backward, because clearly you're married, you have the kid. It's a wonderful life. You're looking at me like maybe it's not a wonderful life.
Some big German broad, I know. Yeah, it's. No, honestly, it did make me kind of pissed off because he was stationed in Germany, and when he told me he was going to get stationed over there, I was like, "You motherfucker!" Like, that's where I want to go. And he's like, oh, "Come visit." I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, let me just fly to Germany." Dick. I love you, Ruben. Yeah, and it's really funny because he really took hold of the German culture while he was there. So when he went over there, he was expecting like, I'm going to Germany, the land of beer. Everyone's going to be drinking like Dunkelweisens and all this shit. And then he got there and all of the fucking, he was like one of the older people when he joined. Everyone was just drinking fucking Budweiser. And he was like, God damn it. What the hell? And they're like, yeah, this is a good American beer. And he's like, no, it's not. It's fucking horse piss.
Trash.
Why aren't you drinking? You have a brewery in your house. My grandma's beer, whatever. I'm like, oh, God. But he bought Lederhosen and shit. And was going to Oktoberfest and started wearing like tight pants. And he bought a fucking Mini Cooper and shit. I was like, well, you're really
Leaning in.
You're really leaning into it, huh? All right, man.
I think I've seen these pictures, actually. I'm not friends with Ruben. I know his wife. Speaking of, while we're on the topic of you leading a different life, marrying your best friend instead, trying to joke. I don't know. Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add for your wife? You know, how you met, why she's awesome. Got to give her something. You're on the show.
I'm not allowed to talk about how my wife and I met because it wasn't under the greatest circumstances. It's one of those things where, you know, love endures.
I was going to say, I feel like you're digging the hole.
And on paper, it doesn't sound great. But, I mean, obviously it was meant to be, because here we are. But it took some mildly shitty behavior from both of us for it to happen. And I've told her, like, so what, like, when Avery's old enough, we're going to tell him? And she was like, no. He's never going to know. Oh, okay. All right. Well, you know, sure. We'll just have always been together as far as he's concerned. You got it. But no, she's a cool lady. I like her a lot. You know, she's a very, very nurturing, caring woman, and I need a lot of nurturing and care. So it really panned out. Like I'm the baby of my family, and so I'm used to being taken care of in certain ways that, you know, maybe older children don't need. And my wife is the oldest child in her family, and so she's used to taking care of people in certain ways that, you know, older siblings do. And so she takes care of me, I take care of her, and, you know, we see eye to eye on the things that matter, and then the things that we don't see eye to eye on, that's what keeps it fresh, you know? I
feel you.
I'm also with the baby of the family.
Yeah.
And I'm the oldest, so I understand
She
the dynamic.
acts like the baby of the family, so
I do not.
It's a strange
I'm so full
dynamic
of
here at the
shit.
table.
I mean,
right
there
now.
are
So full of
certain times where she and I do butt heads because, I mean, she's also a very particular person. Like, she likes things a certain way, and in her mind, her way is
The right way?
The right way.
Yeah.
And I try to tell her it's a different way. It's a good way, and that's fine. But there are other ways, and she's just like, nah. And so there are a lot of things in my house where I'm like, that's because that's how my wife wants it. And I don't care enough to argue about it. It took me a good couple of months to be like, where's all my silverware and shit? Because I didn't decide where those things went. And if I tried to move them, she was like, that's not where those go. They go wherever we want. It's our house. We can put them anywhere.
Nope.
That's not where it happens.
If it was your house and yours alone, that would be the case.
Yeah. But
not so much when you live with.
But we see, you know, the things that, like, I would say probably the biggest connection that we have, you know, from a pretty early on point in our relationship, we both agreed and understood that at some point we want kids, you know, really early on, you know, but we also didn't want to get pregnant when we weren't stable, and it took us a long time to get that way. Mm-hmm. But now, like, I'm actually really proud of our responsibility, I guess, because we did wait until we were in a good, stable environment. Like, we're raising our kid in a good neighborhood in a nice house, and he gets to have a lot of luxuries and amenities that we didn't have, but without, I don't think we're spoiling him.
Right.
Like, he has boundaries and stuff, you know? And so, I think we're doing a really good job, but there's very few times where she and I disagree on what the right move is in terms of parenting. And I think that is probably one of the most important building blocks of our relationship, is that we both know this is how we want to raise a person. And we communicate we don't always communicate well about everything, obviously, but in terms of parenting, we communicate very, very well. Yeah, it makes me super happy. I think we're both good parents, and when one of us is not being a good parent, the other one can go, hey, maybe adjust that. And there's no like, fuck you, don't tell me how to be a parent. It's like, oh yeah, right, I see what you're saying. Yeah. And we can listen to each other in terms of that.
Well, thank you. I feel like you definitely gave her something, and that was the idea.
Yeah, I've heard, I'm not a parent, but I've heard that a good, like, parent dynamic is like, like the mom walks in and she's like, okay, I got 70% today. Mm-hmm. Can you help make up for my lack of 30? Like, what can you put in? What can I put in to equal out 100%?
Like, when it comes to chores and stuff around the house, she would definitely disagree that we share an equal load. She's definitely doing more than I am there. I'll give her that. But when it comes to parenting, it's 50-50. Like, Well, one of my biggest pet peeves in terms of parenting goes is whenever I hear dudes be like, "Oh yeah, I'm babysitting the kids." No, you're not. You're parenting they're your children, dude.
Yeah.
Like that's your fucking job. Go do that. And like just that hearing that gets on my nerves. But like they're like some of my wife's friends, whenever they hang out, when my wife will come back and tell me like, yeah, they're legitimately concerned when they have to leave their kids with their dad because like, is he gonna fucking take care of them properly and feed them the way they're supposed to be fed and blah blah blah. And my wife knows, like my wife is gone, like she just went to Las Vegas to go see Adele, and so it was just me and my son for 3 days, and she didn't have to think about it.
Fine.
Like it's fine. I know you're gonna take care of him. You're gonna bathe him and feed him and make sure he doesn't die and all that other stuff, and like just in general be a good parent. And and it's always been that way. Like there's never been any. I mean, obviously, when he was a baby, my wife had a lot more experience. Like she was a babysitter growing up and whatnot, and she's always worked in childcare to some degree. Like she works in childcare now. So when it came to like the mechanics of you have an infant, yeah, she had more knowledge there than I did. But once, I got the hang of that part, it's been 50-50 the whole way.
Yeah, because it doesn't really get more difficult than that.
No, it really doesn't.
And
they stop screaming for hours at a time, and you get to sleep.
You're golden.
And then you're fine. You're cool. It's great.
Yeah, well, I'd be with you. Same in this household. I stayed home with the kids while she was working.
Yeah.
Doing all the creative pursuits while I could. I can no longer do that. So back in the normal person boat and loving it. It's life.
Yeah, I'm back in the office now, and it's fine. I got to work from home for like 2.5 years. I know that COVID was rough and, lockdown sucked and blah, blah, blah. But personally, I had a great time.
It was awesome.
Agreed.
We
I
just
got
had
to
this
stay,
conversation.
like my kid was 3 months old, and I got to spend so much more time with him than I otherwise would not have gotten to spend.
Yes.
And it really helped bond us a lot. It helped bond me and my wife. It helped bond us as a family all together. And it makes me feel like a better dad that I got to spend all that time with him. But I think it's also kind of bit me in the ass because I feel like that's probably part of the reason why I feel guilty going and doing things on my like coming here. I'm having a good time, but I had to accept this is an evening that I'm not going to be spending with my kid.
Yeah.
But it's okay because there's tomorrow evening, and I have so many evenings that I'm going to be spending where it's just me and him because my wife is out and has an appointment or something.
Not to mention, I know you've given the world quite a bit at this point artistically, but if anything were to ever happen, he has this.
Right.
We'll treat it with care, and we'll make sure that he has this.
Yeah.
To look back on. So it's not an evening wasted.
No, indeed. Well, yeah, I'm getting better at being I can go out and hang out and shit, and it's fine. He's well, my dad doesn't love me.
They're very forgiving.
They are, yeah, him especially. He's a good kid, that one.
All right, so this is the last thing that I have. Stinky's Puppet Advice Corner and the Grandma Waffles videos are both irreversibly stuck in the recesses of my brain. Have you ever considered just picking back up on some of those comedic videos you used to do on the Beethoven's Dick YouTube channel?
So, the Grandma and Waffles thing, I was just bored one day, and my mom's mom was living with us. She sadly passed away from Alzheimer's several years ago. But at the time, she was living with us, and my mom was helping take care of her and stuff. And that's part of what I was talking about in that video, because I was I love this lady, but good Lord. So that was just kind of I was just ranting to rant. The Stinky's Puppet advice video, I actually still have that puppet, and I play with my son with that puppet. I do shows with it, and I still do. I'm I'm Stinky. And my wife hates puppets. I think puppets are probably one of the most underappreciated tools of comedy. You can do some hilarious shit with puppets.
Yes, you can.
Because they're...
And yes, you have, by the way.
Because puppets are, when people think of puppets, they're oh, children's shows, Sesame Street and shit like that. But then, to make this adorable, I'm a bright orange, happy puppet, and to make it be fuck you. It's so funny to me. And my wife hates it. She hates it so much. She thinks they're creepy. But also she loves clown statues. So
okay,
take her opinion with a grain of salt.
That is far creepier in my opinion.
Right? Yeah. She has a box of them in our closet. She's I'm gonna put them out one day. The fuck you are. But anyway, I think puppets are great. Yeah. So I still have that one. So that was a test thing, and I never got back into it. And I'll tell you why. Because in that video, what you're seeing is a lot of edited down footage. It was about 3 hours of dicks. that I had to wade through to get anything usable. And I think I have a video somewhere where it's just this fucking puppet in front of a camera, and then some dude comes on and he's slapping his dick, and I'm staying in character, and I was like, oh hey, yeah, thanks, that's your penis and your balls, okay. But it was just so much of that. I was like, I don't think I can deal with 3 hours of penises every week just to get like 5 minutes of good content. Right. And also, all of those questions that I did, I just pulled off of like Quora or Yahoo Answers or whatever. And the idea was that if I got any kind of traction, people would send in questions that I would get to answer. But that didn't really happen. Oh, and I remember now, yeah, because in that video, there's not actually any other video. I just answered the questions because of all the penises.
Yeah.
And there's so many penises. But like, it was nuts. There's one dude who was like spreading his butthole. It was just, it was awful, man. And I was like, you know what? I don't think that's going to be the way to go. But I just never dedicated the time to it. And I probably never will regularly, but it's still fun. Every now and then I think about going and doing it again because it would be really funny.
It is. It's an awesome channel to turn to.
Scrody Williams is also kind of a bit of that too, where I was like, I like to be funny, but there's not a whole lot of room for that in my music. And so I think Scrody Williams is a little bit of Stinky as well. Also, like, my kid knows his name is Stinky. So when he's nice. Like, can I play with Stinky? I'm like, yeah, dude. You don't even know what that puppet is, man. If 100%. You've seen the thing that puppet is seeing, buddy.
It's always nice to have something else to turn to, something that really opens you up on another level creatively.
Honestly, I think it's hilarious that you've even seen it. Because, like, I've actually put out a decent amount of content in general, like, not just music. Like, I've done animations. I recently made a movie. It's like 30 minutes long. Like, it's a feature.
Okay.
And so there's this iPhone game called Bloody Bastards, and it's a melee fighting game where it's done in like a sort of 16-bit art style, and like as you play, you unlock different weapons and armor and blah blah blah. But the way you control the character is you just move your thumbs in a circle, and it moves the character's arms.
Okay,
and that's how you fight each other, and it's super goofy. And so then one day, like, I like doing all kinds of, like, I like music production, I like video production, you know, all that kind of shit. And so one day, just because, like, I just feel like editing some stuff, I just made like a little, what I thought was going to be a one-off. Like, I just did a screen recording while I'm playing, and then I talked over it. And it was kind of funny. And, like, I uploaded it to the Facebook page, because there's, like, a Facebook page for the game. And I got a decent response. I'm like, I showed it to Ruben, and he was like, that's pretty funny. And I was like, all right, I'll do another one, fuck it. And so I did another one a couple days later. And again, it was, like, a very rough take, but it was still fun. Like, I got it. The character is this guy. There's two characters. One's name is Wimpy Bitch, and he's a little, like, scrawny wiener dude. And then there's another guy named Bulldog, and he's got, like, this big, huge beard, and it looks like a nutsack on his face. And I don't know if they did that intentionally, but that's what it looks like. And he's got like this really low voice, and he's a bully, you know. But he's the character that's fun to do. And so then I did another one, and the second one was all right. It was kind of just like a repeat of the first one. But again, I was just making it up on the spot. And then I was like, all right, you know what? I actually enjoy making these. Like, they don't take me long to make. It takes me all of like 15 minutes to make one. And so then the third one I made was a little more polished. I actually wrote some dialogue, and it's like with it, and it was pretty good. And then I did a fourth one, and that was the best one in my opinion. There's a part where the Bulldog character, it's Wimpy Bitch's son, who's coming to avenge his father. He's like, you're tired of you picking on my dad all the time. And Bulldog is like, oh shit, it's Bitch Jr. And he goes and just calls him all these names with bitch in the middle. And at one point, the last thing he calls him like, oh, diet bitch, bitch lied. And then Wimpy's like, stop saying things. And then he goes, can't believe it's not bitch. And I thought that was like the funniest line that I'd ever written in my life. And I was like, oh my God, like, that was so good. And so then I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to make a movie, and obviously, like, no one's going to be an actor for me or anything. I'm going to use this video game, this fucking stupid mobile melee fighting game, and I'm going to make a fucking movie. And I did.
Jeez.
And it took me 3 fucking months. every night. Every night I'm like, all right, I'm playing and I'm recording so I can get the footage, and then now I'm editing it down, and then I got to do like all this post-production. I'm like, it's got credits, it's got the fucking opening fanfare, 20th Century Fox, and I'm like, it's a whole ass movie. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a fucking cohesive plot. It's dumb as shit. It's super stupid, and it. In hindsight, I wish I'd done the beginning a little different, because the beginning, there's a very, very, very graphic sex scene.
Okay. But
it's done in that cartoony style, because there's another game that I used where that game is for like, you're supposed to, it's like a puzzle game, but you're also jacking off while you play. Okay. I'm not into those kinds of games, but the fact that it existed I thought was hilarious. And so I used some footage from that game and incorporated it into this movie, because I was like, the fact that there's 8-bit animation of people fucking was hysterical to me. And so I utilized it, but not everyone's going to think that's funny. You know, for some people it's going to be like, what the hell is this? What's wrong with you? But that's kind of what I was going for. I wondered people, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, I know, right? Not what's wrong with me. What's wrong with the person who created that? Yes. I didn't make that. I just put it in here because what the fuck? But I think it's really funny. I think it's fucking hilarious. Most people would disagree. But so anyway, the point is I put out a lot of content. Its quality is up for debate, but I think it's funny that anyone has even taken the time to watch any of it, because a lot of it is really stupid. It's real stupid stuff. And I think it's even funnier that, like, if you listen to my music, it's not funny.
You'd never know.
It's not funny music. These are sad songs most of the time. A lot of them are very emotional and meaningful. And then when you're like, oh, let's see what kind of humor this guy has. Oh, dick and butthole jokes. Okay, well...
Apparently that's my thing. I knew this about myself, but I've tried to deny it for a long time. I questioned even bringing the Beethoven's Dick channel up, but I feel like we just got a lot of gold out of it. So.
That name is, you know, like people, they're like, oh yeah, that guy, he's gifted. He's got, you know, he's got the hands of Mozart. I was like, you know, no one ever says so. He's got Beethoven's dick on that guy. You know, he's really channeling.
You also forget who you're talking to. This motherfucker over here put out a video of a dude pissing on a piece of cheese for like...
We got a whole video series planned.
Where was this, you peeing on cheese?
It was my brother-in-law, but YouTube won't let us release them. They keep blocking them. They think it's real pee.
Oh,
it's like a dude standing with a water bag.
Yeah, you just see the legs and the cheese. And
that's kind of funny, because there's a video that I have.
Oh God!
So whenever Rubber Gloves closes down, that's the place that I like to go a lot to see bands play. Because like Haley's is where you went to go see touring international bands and whatnot, and the Rubber Gloves is where you went to go see like shitty, heavy, grungy bands and whatnot. Okay. But Rubber Gloves in and of itself was a grungy place to go. But that's what I liked about it. And so whenever it closed down, the last time that I went there, and I knew it was the last time I was going to go, I drank like 9 beers or something. And then I went to go take a pee, and I was like, oh, seems like a proper send-off. And so I filmed. It was a straight up 2-minute pee stream, which very impressive in my opinion, to pee for 2 minutes straight. You don't see my wiener or anything. You just see the stream going into the toilet. And then I posted it on the Denton subreddit. And people didn't like it. They thought it was disrespectful.
I was like, no. Why.
It's a send-off.
It's a send-off. I loved that place. Here's my pee. But that video's on YouTube. You can go watch it right now if you know where to look.
Oh, God.
I hope no one looks for it.
But... Well, we might have to now. Do you have anything you want to add over here before?
I just want to say thanks for stopping by. Talking music, talking dad stuff, talking piss, talking puppets, talking everything under the sun, and it's been real fun to have you. I've had like a lot of laughs, and it's been a while since I've laughed like this.
It's been a good time. Thanks for having me on.
I'm going to try to redeem myself a little bit here. I'd add that your music is definitely my favorite sort to listen to, and that I hope listeners go hear it in depth once the interview is over. I started doing that myself in preparation of the show and wound up listening to your whole damn disco. So without making a bunch of comparisons to other artists that could offend you somehow, let me just borrow your own on-point artist language from Spotify. Your songwriting is often emotional and climactic, with catchy rhythms and layered vocal harmonies, mixing sincere lyrics with memorable tunes. In my opinion, your talent's bolstered by your keen self-awareness, someone who obviously feels deeply, but isn't afraid to jam, party, or joke as well. I think we've established that here today. I apologize for having to creep your online life history more than I have most women I've been interested in, but truly an honor having you on the show.
I appreciate it, man. It's been a good time.
And you're welcome back. Absolutely, anytime.
Absolutely.